Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning. Today is July the 4th. Happy Independence Day, America. I miss you. Um, but there's a lot to do here in Ukraine, and I'm very privileged to be part of that. And I am concerned about the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant, and I want to talk about why. Clearly, as the New York Times reports here, the Russians blew up the Novakhovka Dam. Now, not only is this a violation of the Geneva Convention extended statements of 1977, Article 56, 57, but it's ecocide of the worst kind. It's damage to the country that will impact its ability to recover economically after this war for years to come. Make no mistake. Not to mention the damage to wildlife. There are multiple wildlife preserves that were flooded out, including refuges for endangered migratory species of birds that are all nesting right now. An entire generation of herons, egrets, uh, uh, ducks, geese are lost. Make no mistake about it. Not to mention the domestic cattle, sheep, goats, etc., right? The food that feeds the Ukrainian people. Now, if they could do this, then they are certainly capable of doing more. And here's what worries me. This is TASS, the Russian news agency. And this is a report that the Russians have circulated a letter among the Security Council of the UN saying that they are convinced that the Ukrainians are going to sabotage the plant and irradiate their own country. Now, this, of course, is nonsense of the worst sort. The Ukrainians are not the ones that, according to Ukrainian military intelligence, have mined 4 of the 6 reactor cores. At this time, we have every reason to believe that the Russians have planted all kinds of explosives in Zaporizhzhia. And the fact that they are saying they're not going to blow it up, it's going to be the Ukrainians that blow it up, just like the Ukrainians blew up the dam, worries me much more than if they were threatening to blow it up. When Putin said, I'm not bluffing, I'll nuke you, I knew immediately he was bluffing. Because anybody that's not bluffing doesn't have to say they're not bluffing, right? The fact that they are saying they're not going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, says to me that they are. And it's very worrisome to me. Now, what are we going to do about it, or what can we do about it? Well, the good news here is that workers at the power plant have managed to reconnect the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant to the backup power lines. So we now have redundancy in terms of keeping the nuclear fissile material there, the expended rods, cool and prevent an accident from happening just because the radiological materials are not being stored properly. Which, frankly, the proper storage of those is the responsibility of the occupying force. And they should be held accountable if anything goes wrong. They're the ones in charge, they're the ones responsible. The IAEA has raised the alarm that there is a risk of nuclear or other radiological materials being used in criminal or intentional unauthorized acts, creating a threat to nuclear security. Now, to track this and prevent it from happening, or at the very least, should it happen, we can identify who the actors are. The IAEA has undergone a process of identifying the waste products of nuclear materials. And so the same kind of isotopes that are found in, say, an old style breeder reactor are not the same kinds of materials that are found in a more modern, efficient reactor. The isotopes that are generated from the refinement of fissile material for nuclear weapons are not the same isotopes that are found in enriched uranium for the purposes of fuel. And these isotopes vary depending on the production method, the refinement method, and the source material. And we know where the Russians get their material. Should they plant a dirty bomb and try to make it appear as though the Ukrainians bombed the nuclear reactor in Zaporizhzhia, the isotope signatures will identify where the radiological material came from and will be able to hold them to account. Another worrying thing, let me introduce you to the WC 135R. The WC 135R, there are two of these planes in existence that I'm aware of. And the United States recently took delivery of the second one in May of this past year. The third one is due to be delivered sometime, I think, before the end of the year or early 2024. But it's my understanding that this, and the purpose of this plane, the function of this plane, is to detect radiological signatures, those very isotopes we're talking about. Now, the worrying thing here is that the United States has transferred one of these two planes to Spain, and so it is nearby. Interestingly, the first plane last year did a sweep of the Black Sea. That means we have a baseline of the naturally occurring background radiation, as well as any radiological signatures from Chernobyl. And we will be able to compare the results of last year's baseline against any future readings, say in the wake of the Russians blowing Zaporizhzhia. I want to highlight this is not the only ecocide that it appears the Russians are contemplating. They have also mined a chemical plant in Crimea where there are 200,000 tons of ammonia stored. How anybody can stand by and claim neutrality in the face of this evil is beyond me. The world must unite in its support for Ukraine in the defeat of this aggressor nation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.